Hello everyone, this is Amanda Hubble, and this video is from my Technology for Teachers course at University of LaVerne. So my video today is about how to work an improv scene. And this is a video for beginners. This concept is for people who've never done any improv before and people who don't know too much about improv. This is for people who are about to start their journey to the improv world. So let's get started. The tenet we're going to be talking about today is how to establish crow. This is something that everybody in improv does, but you don't always see them do it. People who are improv veterans, people like Will Ferrell, for example, they're doing this without even thinking about it. They can just make that happen without considering it. But to establish crow, you have to establish character, relationship, objective, and where. That's what those stand for. So we're going to get into those and what those mean. First is C for character. You have to know who you are in this scene. You could play yourself, but that's not usually as interesting as, say, a nun, or well, maybe a nun with bad hygiene habits, for example. So you have to know who those characters are, and you have to make sure you know what makes your character unique, and why is that interesting for other people to watch. R is for relationship. Now when you're doing an improv, pretty typically you'll have at least one other person in the scene with you. So you have to know how your character feels about their character. So you have to put away your personal relationships with whoever your scene partner is, and know what your relationship means. And this relationship provides meaning to a scene. And with any scene, as with any novel or story, there has to be a conflict. And that conflict typically comes from the relationship. O is for objective. This is what actors call motivation. So when you're making that joke with people pretending you're an actor and you say, "But what's my motivation?" This is what you're talking about. You're talking about your objective. What do you want as a character? If you're crossing the stage, for example, and you're trying to pretend that you're walking across the moon, why are you walking across the moon? Are you trying to escape the moon? Or are you trying to find something on the moon? That's what your objective is. And that's how you contribute to the solution of a scene, which comes as part of the conflict. W for where. What's your location? The where isn't always the most important part of the scene, but again, if you're on the moon, then that can certainly create a type of conflict. It can create a type of ambiance to your scene that can create something interesting for people to watch. For example, if you're, a nun in a convent, then maybe that's not as interesting, but if you're a nun in a haunted house, for example, that could create a little more conflict. And both of those are acceptable answers. It's just something that people should think about, because if you're in a scene and you're like, oh man, I've chosen the wrong character, I've chosen the wrong relationship, if you choose an interesting location, then you can probably create something out of the scene. The next step for improv is to do it. The best way to get better at improv is to improv. The more you improv, the better you get at it, and most people can tell you that if you are not failing at least 50% of the time, then you're probably not doing it correctly. There's a really great improv group out in LA actually called Groundlings, and a lot of very famous people come from there. Kristen Wiig, for example, from Bridesmaids, comes from Groundlings. And you can go and watch improv and watch people who have been studying improv for years, people who that's their passion in life is improv, and you can learn a lot from other people by watching them improv. So that's the end of my video. Thank you very much for your attention, and I hope you guys learned something.